Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla. One of the most popular videos on my channel was over 3 years ago where I read booktuber recommendations where they made videos called "If you like this book, read this book." But I thought it was time to return to the age-old question, can we trust booktubers? I've been saving videos in this playlist for over 3 years since I did this last and not watched any of them until just last month when I was preparing for this video. I filmed reactions to all of them, have a little TBR to share with you before we get into the reading vlog portion. I'll link the playlist down below so you can check out even more than I have featured here. And let's get into it. The whole goal is if any book pops up that I've given a 4 or 5 star, I can then take the recommendation, the comp title the booktuber has offered. The first booktuber I absolutely had to feature was Jenny from This Story Ain't Over because 3 years ago she was one of the only booktubers whose video I watched and didn't leave with a recommendation. I pretty much read all the suggestions she offered in the video or hadn't read the book that she was comparing something else to, even if I was interested in the original book. But this time around, I found something.
One of them is actually one of my all-time favorites. I think you guys can already guess what this is gonna be. So if you liked Circe by Madeline Miller, which is this Greek mythology retelling about an obscure character from mythology or from a specific epic, the Odyssey.
I did love Circe. I gave it 5 stars.
Then you will probably love Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. I know I've been talking about this book endlessly for the past year, but I'm not gonna stop.
Oh my god, I for some reason thought she was going to mention that book first and then recommend something, but that doesn't even make sense because that was a recent read of hers and it's a favorite. And more people have definitely read Circe. First recommendation of the video. And I have the reason to read the book I've been wanting to read. I've had this on my TBR for a while now because of Jenny. I've been looking for an excuse to read it. I thought I might get to read it in the booktuber favorites video, but we didn't have enough in common. There ended up being a couple other recommendations in her video that I wanted to take that I could have taken, but my goal was to find one from each video. So next up, I watched Monet's.
So I know I'm not the only one that when I read a book and love it, I immediately want to start searching out other books that have similar aspects. That's not going to be a copycat and a letdown, but a book that's going to give me the same feels and tropes and elements that I felt when I was reading said book. And that is going to be Vicious with All of Us Villains. Both of these books contain very villainous characters who are relentless and brutal on their quest for whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish.
Okay, I did give Vicious 4 stars. I don't feel like I have been seeking out books like it, but that was the 3rd book in the video. She's gone through a couple recommendations already that you haven't seen, so I guess I'm taking this one. This wasn't really on my radar because of the age range, but it does focus around a competition and there is a secret tournament to the death. So now I have 2 fantasy books on my TBR and I was looking for some romance. I took the entire last month off from reading romance and I thought it was time to dip my toe in. Unfortunately, what I discovered, though there were romance recommendation videos aplenty, I have not read enough romance to have something featured and then have a recommendation for it. So though there were things that intrigued me from multiple booktubers, didn't end up with a direct recommendation, but then I saw Ashley's video, which puts a spin on the whole romance thing.
Weird version of If You Like This, Read This, where I'm gonna be talking about romance books you should read if you like certain thriller or horror books.
Such an interesting idea that based on themes of a thriller, take away all of like the intensity and you're left with the relationships. Can I like the same themes?
If you like Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, then I think you should read Shipped by Angie Hockman.
Okay, I gave Reckless Girls a 4 and I just saw Shipped on in Chandler's video and I was thinking I would rather read the On Honeymooners than Shipped, but her recommendation, now 2 people have recommended Shipped.
This is set at the Galapagos Islands. These 2 co-workers who are both up for a promotion, they're both being sent on this cruise together and trying to come up with some kind of marketing idea for it.
The library luckily had a copy of this and I know I said I would pick 1 per video, but another one popped up.
If you enjoyed the book The One by John Mars, then I would recommend The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren.
Okay.
Full honesty here, I haven't read The Soulmate Equation yet, but I do know what it's about.
Okay, I gave the one 5 stars. I've had people tell me to pick up The Soulmate Equation based on some of my favorite things, and I am just interested in reading Christina Lauren for the first time. That's why I was interested in The Honeymooners and wanted to get to read it, but this is a solid pick as well, even though she hasn't read it. What these have in common, I can't deny my interest in. The one is like sci-fi thriller. This is probably light sci-fi romance. The idea that your DNA can match you perfectly with somebody. So I took 2 from Ashley, assuming those were the only romance recommendations I was gonna get. Little did I know, Capri was gonna pop in with something of her own.
Alright, so the final book that I have is if you like 7 Days in June, then you will like Before I Let Go. Now, I have not read 7 Days in June yet, but I know and have heard enough about this damn book to know what it's about.
People giving recommendations for books they've never read is wild. Okay, I loved 7 Days in June and Before I Let Go. See, the thing is, like, I know that I'm not looking for really heavy romance, but there is a couple heavier romance, like as opposed to a rom-com, that I have enjoyed. So while I don't feel like I would ever seek out Before I Let Go, I'm sure once I have read it, I will appreciate it. I've had Kennedy Ryan recommended to me a couple times. I didn't know that this is the one I'd end up picking. Another second chance romance, a couple of timelines, I think set in the future, dealing with children and marriage. But I'm thrilled to have another romance on the list. I think next up I watched Bethany, which I didn't get any recommendations from, but I just need to mention it in case you're looking for something like this and you want to check out the playlist. Bethany's recommendation list is fantastic, and I have read like every single thing in the video, so I couldn't take any of the ideas. But next up, I moved along to Noelle.
Let's talk pandemic or dystopic type books. So I'm gonna recommend for Station 11. If you've read Station 11, which is...
Yes, gave it 5 stars. This video is over a year old, so everything coming to mind that she would recommend hasn't been out when she made this. Severance, maybe?
But I have 2 recommendations. We have Severance,
Yes.
which again is about this global...
Was a 5 star.
The second book I would recommend for a book that goes well with Station 11 is The Guide. There's this one super safe space, which is this like super expensive fishing villa. And it's like out in the mountains and it's like all gated off. And so only the most rich people can go there.
I've ever seen
and
this
it's just this
before.
like utopia in this world of such unease.
I absolutely love this cover. I can't wait to see what it's all about. I bought the hardcover copy, so hopefully it lives up to my own expectations that I'm creating for it. Next up, I watched Gabby, who I think had 3 videos on the playlist, and it was the very first video, and it may be the very first book in it that I got to take a recommendation for.
If you liked Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke
I did.
by Eric LaRocca, then I think you should check out We Need to Do Something by Max Booth III. Both of these
Okay.
are, you know, horror novellas that are just so unhinged and bizarre, and just like by the ending, you're just like, what the f-?
I have seen that book on, I think it was on her favorites list of the year. Okay, I mean, I need a horror for this video, so let's go with it. A family finds themselves isolated in a bathroom during a tornado. I know it's become a movie. I can't wait to dive into this horror novella. I think I watched a couple more videos from here, didn't end up with anything, but then we moved on to Mara, who I unexpectedly got another romance recommendation from.
Okay, very different tone-wise. I just wanted to mention that if you are have read or anticipating reading The Wedding Crasher
It's one
by
of my
Mia
favorite
Sosa this year,
romances.
I would also recommend Set on You by, I forget the author, Lee someone. I think these are 2 of the truest rom-coms I've ever seen in book form. They take the plot beats and the humor type of a rom-com movie and translate them into book form very well.
I've seen this around. My library had it. I didn't even realize it was from a Canadian author, a Canadian Chinese author. I've definitely considered picking it up before, so excited to get into it. And from here, I needed one more recommendation because I feel like the balance of genres is not perfect yet. I'm gonna watch one more because I recently subscribed to Expert Book Smuggler, and I think she does a lot of horror stuff. So I'm gonna see if we can get one more from this.
We're gonna start first with A God in the Shed and The Good House. A God in the Shed is the one I read first, and I just read The Good House. And both of these books get inside the heads of multiple characters to weave a rich and compelling
Okay,
story.
The Good House I gave 4.5 stars, and I have seen her talk about A God in the Shed a few times. It's like an all-time favorite, and I have been intrigued by it. So that was such a great way to kick this off. Should I even keep watching? This really sounds like a horror novel I could enjoy, and so we've got a novella and a longer one, and I feel like everything is now right with the world. And there is my TBR for the video. There's a lot here. I'm not committing to absolutely everything, but I'm gonna give everything a try, give you my first impressions. And I'm so excited to analyze these book tour recommendations. Let's begin. Hello, welcome to the kickoff of the vlog. Today is April Fool's Day, and we're going to a friend's house tonight, like for the entire evening. So I thought I should start my day and maybe try to read an entire book today. I thought I would start the video with a romance because that'll be something like fun and quick to read. So while I'm getting ready, I've been listening to, and I'm continuing to listen to, the first chapter of each of my romance TBR via audiobook, and then that'll help me just get into each of them and decide which one I want to prioritize, or even if I want to read all 4 of them, you know? So I started with the soulmate equation, and it kicked off with a woman with a 7-year-old daughter, which I didn't know was part of the plot. I don't always love romance books that have children involved. I feel like the ones that I have enjoyed, I've liked in spite of that. So we have a main character whose name I already forgot. I think it started with a J, and she has a 7-year-old daughter, and she seems like kind of fine just being single and living her mom life. But her best friend is really pushing for her to find a man because that'll like make her happy apparently. And then there's this guy at the local coffee shop who she thinks is cute, and they find out that this guy is starting this app that is about finding your soulmate via your DNA. And that was just the first chapter. Then with Before I Let Go, or Before I Let You Go, again, there's a child involved apparently, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. So I didn't get the first chapter, I just got the sample on Audible because it's not available anywhere else. So it was only a 5-minute sample, but there is 2 narrators. So I think that'll be fun if I want to actually listen to one of these as an audiobook. But it was just from this guy's perspective, and he was talking about how he got involved with this woman. I don't know how much of the story is like their before and their after, or if it's flashbacks to their before, or what the storyline really is going to be, but it seemed like it was in the past, and he was just thinking about like starting a business, or she was encouraging him to start a business, and I'm assuming they're going to break up, and then maybe he's actually going to start that business, and then as like adults they're getting back together. Anyway, gonna listen to the first chapter of these ones while I finish my hair, and then I'll check in with you about those. So both of these are hate to love dynamics, which is something I established I liked before, but in my romance exploration series I didn't really dive into very much. I wouldn't say either of them are calling to me, but I think I'm just overanalyzing them a little bit. So Shipped is about this woman who is a marketing manager, and this guy is a social media manager, and they're vying for the same position of like the marketing director at their company. It's a cruise company, and they're going to go on a cruise together. In the first chapter, it established their dynamic, which is a little rough. They haven't even met in person. They've just been communicating like online all of this time as co-workers, but the way she speaks to him sounds like she thinks that she's his boss. I obviously have a certain perspective as a social media manager, so when she is saying things like, this is behind and this you didn't post and I told you to post it, it just confuses me because he should be responsible for like strategy. So when she's emailing him at 8 p.m. telling him to post something and he's like, no, she just doesn't seem to like him very much. And there was one moment that we established in a meeting where he kind of took credit, or he allowed somebody to give him credit for something that she did. So she's obviously reluctant to even engage with him, but now they're going for the same position. And the way that the boss is deciding who's going to get the position is just based on this little creative pitch, which just doesn't make any sense to me. Like not taking into account their ability to be leaders or like have people under them, the way they communicate, the way they work with others. Like he's already seen their creativity at work, so it just seems weird that them going on a cruise and then having to pitch just one idea is what's going to decide who gets a director position. Anyway, I am intrigued to see how it's going to go from here. Then we've got Set on You. So this is about a girl who I just found out is an influencer. She is a workout influencer, and she's filming herself at the gym, and there's this guy who like takes her equipment. Shitty guys are at the heart of these. I don't know yet if I love her vibe or his vibe, or how their dynamic is gonna work. I'm worried because she's filming herself and he was in it and then he was kind of mean to her that she's gonna post that video. They're all a little questionable right now actually, but I'm gonna start with Shipped. Here's where I'm at with Shipped so far. I'm a little past the halfway point. I think it's just hard for me to know when to DNF a romance because a lot of times I don't know if it's going to be a huge win for me until we get to the end. So right now it's just okay. And I thought maybe an analysis would be smart because I think something that I'm not liking is interesting when you look at the book that it was compared to. Now, obviously it's the vacation setting, it's the island, it's the boat, it's the travel. Like that was the reason that they have been paired up. Before anyone recommends me the Unhoneymooners, I know I need to read that, and I promise I will one day. This has been said it's a mix of the Unhoneymooners meets The Hating Game, which I've already seen the movie, like I already know everything about it, so I don't feel like picking up the book, but I know Workplace Rivals, people have told me to pick that up. But this also fits into that, so that's fun. But besides that, the two things that kind of ping in my mind are the fact that this is a thriller, but the thrilling stuff doesn't really come in for a while, and it's only like 20% of the book. And this, I feel like the romance is taking its time to get into, and it's not really the main focus. Like there really is a lot about friendship and family. She brought her sister on this trip, and also work stuff. Like it is a lot of work stuff. And that's a balance I'm really appreciating. I just hope that the romance picks up and that it gets steamy. If it doesn't, I truly don't know how to feel. But the fact that they have cabins next to each other on the cruise gives me a lot of hope. The other thing I think they have in common is I don't like anybody in these books. I didn't like the characters in here, and I feel like that's normal when you pick up a mystery or thriller book. Everyone's kind of questionable. Though I kind of feel like you're supposed to like some of the characters, and I just didn't. But since I gave this a 4-star, obviously that didn't ruin the book for me. And in here, though maybe you are supposed to enjoy the characters more when it comes to a romance, I'm not really. I don't like anybody's vibe. With that said, I know the point is that they think they don't like each other, and then eventually they do. So the miscommunication is already involved. Like it's not a third act thing. It is miscommunication throughout the entire thing, or just a lack of communication. But the way that she perceives him and is talking about him, the things she's saying just doesn't make a lot of sense in the industry as far as like his job titles, his experience, his qualifications, and then her assumptions that she works harder because he works remotely. Like the person with the biggest ick is definitely the boss, who is making all of the shitty decisions. And I'm ready to get fully invested now into Henley and Graham and their romance. So let's go. My 33 balloons my mom brought over for my birthday, it was just a couple days ago, and Liam has decided that this one is his own personal punching bag. So he comes out and he just hits it every morning. And now it's deflated. I know a lot of you commented in my recent video that his voice is lower, and here's what you didn't see about him aging very rapidly. It gets worse because he's taller than me now. I showed them the 3 I've been punching. No, my sleeve is really big today. Don't pull on it. 3 I've been punching. I think it is time to retire them if you want to pop them. Actually, they can't live here forever. Oh my god, no, ah! With a spoon? So I'm gonna give Shipped 3.75, the same rating that I always give Emily Henry. It had less romance than Emily Henry does though. Like yeah, it was about their relationship building, but it was more so about her career and her life choices. I feel like it followed a really typical framework for the type of book where two people are going after the same job or award or whatever. Everything I expected to happen did happen. I think the ending was really nice. I think their relationship was a little too easy. Not that I wanted a more dramatic third act breakup, but he was maybe just a little too soft. They're pretty generic characters in my mind. It's the type of book that a month from now I won't really remember their names. I feel like the author teased that she was gonna let it go further and it was gonna get steamier, and it didn't, which was kind of disrespectful. But it is always nice to have a book with more closed door scenes that I can recommend to those who don't want more explicit scenes. I don't know why I just said that, as if I regularly recommend romance anywhere ever. Okay, I'm gonna move on to more of my wheelhouse next. So we need to do something. At this point is reminding me of Leave the World Behind and The Cabin at the End of the World. Just in that the world seems to be ending. Like this family is holed up in their bathroom together. Sorry, I didn't close the door. You can hear Rob click-clacking. But they are contained and stuck where they currently are. And they think there's a tornado outside, but it might be something else. Like they're talking about maybe it's aliens. How has nobody come and helped them? And it's just a lot of dialogue. And this family who clearly does not really like each other. And I don't think we're supposed to like any of them because they're saying just like, they're just very angry people. But then it's also a little bit funny. So it's strange in that way. The plot itself has not been strange. And so I'm waiting for it to give me the vibes of the book it was recommended because of. And Gabby said it was because they both get completely unhinged. So I'm starting to feel it going in that direction, because our main character, she's starting to say weird things like, have we always lived here? Have we always been in this bathroom? Like, are we even alive at all? And something happened with her and a girl who I think she's dating. They did something and she thinks she's the reason that they're trapped in the bathroom. And I think she's starting to experience delusions because she's imagining other people there and death. But I don't know if any of it's real. So I think I'm having a good time, and I believe it is getting stranger from here. So that's exciting. All right, I finished it. I'm gonna give it a 4-star. It is leaning towards a 5, and it's weird because it leaves you with some questions. It isn't like the satisfying ending that some people probably desire, which is why it has a lower Goodreads average rating. And I usually like an ambiguous ending, right? Like, that's my whole thing. I love it. But this one, you know what it is? I feel like it could have had an ending. That's the thing. A lot of books that have an ambiguous ending, I think that is the only way the book should have ended. Like, it needed to end there. But with this, I can imagine like 3 different endings that I think would have been better than leaving us with questions. So for me, and that reason, it's a 4. And now I need to watch the movie to see how that ends. So I'm sure it's probably the same because it like makes sense with what happens in the story. It definitely has some gruesome moments, but I don't think it went as dark or weird as I was expecting, or impactful or horrifying, because you do get to question things as the reader. I know this has also been compared to, I'm thinking of Anything's by Ian Reid, and I think it's more like the weirdness of the Ian Reid, but the topics and icky nature of an Eric LaRocca. I really do like an isolated insular horror, but I also feel like I like that in every genre. So like even Shipped, I think a reason I was enjoying Shipped was because it was such an isolated place. Like the forced proximity trope was definitely present in there, which is similar to Reckless Girls, because they're all on an island and on a boat. This one takes place in a bathroom. The Ian Reid takes place in a car. Eric LaRocca's is just like insular in itself with the characters, and it's like within, you know, messaging. So everything has leaned towards my enjoyment of very small settings with big atmosphere. Excited to see what I'm gonna end up reading next. So I made it to a quarter way in. At this point, it's not reminding me of 7 Days in June yet, but we haven't really had any flashbacks, which is interesting. And it seems to be the next chapter says Josiah then. So we're about to flash back to the past, but I don't know how often that's gonna happen, because the first chapter was just a little flashback, and then maybe this one is just another little flashback. Honestly, it's not quite what I was expecting, because the before and after, we're not even in the before, but it doesn't seem like, as a second chance romance, very much time has passed. I don't think it's established how long they've been divorced. Having not read the synopsis, what I imagined it would be is she has had children with somebody else, like in 7 Days in June, or she like has her own established life, and then it's like a little spark that you had with somebody 10, 20 years ago, and it's their romance. But it's not that. It's they have been very recently divorced. Their children are like the same age as my child, so I'm very sensitive to like how much they have disrupted these children's lives and impacted them to just be lusting over each other again and planning to get back together what seems to me like very quickly. Now obviously these are fictional characters, and I'm placing no judgment on anybody else or like what turmoil people go through. They have experienced great loss, multiple losses in a short time period, and they are grieving. I usually love books about grief, but I don't know that I want these like heavy topics in my romance, because if I'm gonna cry because of a book, I would rather be in a different genre. I am so sad for these characters and what's transpired within their relationship. But I don't know, kicking it off with him finally like getting involved with somebody else and starting to get over their marriage, and what he has been through, for Yasmin to be really jealous of that and kind of giving off the vibe that she wants to be with him again. Because I understand this is a love story and I'm supposed to root for their relationship, I want to, but I don't feel like that's the best thing for them. But because it seems like their marriage ended before anything disastrous happened, like she knew that she couldn't be a proper partner and she had so much emotion that she needed to work through. So it seems like, you know, she kind of took it out on her relationship rather than being able to work through it while staying in her marriage. She needed to just be on her own. And I respect that. She's not a perfect character. She couldn't have, you know, talked herself through all of these emotions. She just needed to go through them and feel them. So it's not like they had a toxic relationship and I'm supposed to root for something I don't agree with. It's just that I haven't gotten to see the tumultuous relationship that they had or what it was leading to. The book didn't let me be there for that. So I'm not so easily convinced that they should be together. I do think they should be together if they want to be together and it's good for everybody, but they just caused so much change for everybody, and to just go back to the way it was, that's just so stressful to me. For some reason it feels wrong giving these the same rating because they're just such different tones, but I do feel like a 3.75 just sums up a lot of romance for me, where I can see why it works for so many people. I understand the appeal. It did enough for me that I had a nice time reading it, but didn't quite hit that 4-star where I could say I enjoyed it. I did tear up a little bit at the end, and I think that this type of book is important to be out there, and so many people are going to connect to it and feel represented, because the topic of grief and depression and losing yourself, like, these are all very valid feelings. Not feeling like you're worthy of love, and then the character getting that love by the end, like, it is a beautiful arc and I can see that. But I at no point like really felt like there was strong evidence given for why these characters should be together, besides the fact that they were already together and have an established family, which, like, okay, that's reason enough. But them just lusting over each other and thinking the other person is so sexy, and the way they make them feel sexy, like, I needed more. I needed more personality. I needed more stuff going on besides sentimental conversation and sex scenes. But I understand for most people, like, that is what sums up our romance. Nothing made me uncomfortable. Nothing made me mad. I just didn't love them for each other the way that I feel like I was intended to. Though in 7 Days in June, I did feel the same. Like, is this really the right relationship for them? But I think all the other elements within 7 Days in June, maybe even the writing itself, that's what led it to be a higher 4. So this isn't too far off rating wise. Today is a day of meetings and appointments, and I thought the guide might be good for something I could pick up and put down like 20 times today. First time at HomeSense. This isn't for work purposes, but I am looking for new couch cushions. Then I have to get my summer tires put on today, so I am gonna walk over to a new Starbucks that's nearby, and I'm gonna meet a friend there for coffee. But then I'm probably gonna also have another hour to kill. So reading this, I think, will be fun. I did briefly start it. It is lush with description. There is so much description of everything that's going on. So there's this guy, I thought he was a little bit older, but then it said he was 25. He takes this job at this fancy, you know, fishing place as a guide. And he is like in charge of like taking in the wealthy clients, teaching them to fish, like showing them a good time. And on the very first day that he's there, he sees a camera. So like he's being watched while they're on the river. And it feels like it could be the setup to like a thriller. And I don't think it's a thriller pandemic book. It's more of just like a slow, descriptive, atmospheric pandemic book based on the other things I see that he's written in nature-based stories. But it feels like it could be like something scary coming. Tire haul. Here they are. Look how, oh, you can't even see them? They're inside bags. The guy changing my tires was like, do you want the old ones bagged up? And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, wait, bagged up, like put in a bag and put in my vehicle, right? Because I thought maybe bagged up was some slang for like trashing them. And I was like, no, I want them back, please. I finished my book. I finished it just while I was out, which is pretty wild, but it's largely spaced pretty big font. And maybe I have some things I need to think about before I give you a review. Actually, I just turned on the camera because I needed to do my tire haul. I'm tired. So the guide, I'm gonna give a 3. It was slow and pretty, and then it got so ridiculous and over the top and just like an action thriller by the end, which was wild. Here's my first package. I ordered the Book of the Unnamed Midwife. You'll understand why soon. And then this is a package from Simon & Schuster. Nothing good happens in Wazirabad on Wednesday. This does not ring a bell. We are 4 for 4 for books that make sense why they were recommended, why people think that you will like one if you like the other, but 4 for 4 within, I've read 4 books that I haven't liked as much as the title that was featured, but it's not too far off rating wise. If I look at the video I recently did where I talked about non-urgent apocalypse stuff and I put Severance and Station 11 on there, I would recommend like The Dreamers and Moon of the Crusted Snow. Probably those would be my top comparable titles personally, though like I love How High We Go in the Dark and The Marathis and A Children's Bible and Leave the World Behind and The Cabin at the End of the World, but they're more unique. They have different like writing styles, or they're a little bit strange. Of course, it wasn't supposed to be the same story as Station 11. I think something they had in common is a limited cast, and a little bit of a performance element, as in there is a character who has some fame attached to them. How it differs, I guess in a lot of ways, but it is a more straightforward story than Severance or Station 11. Station 11 has different characters and different timelines, and Severance also has different timelines. This one is a much more linear experience. It's just this guy at this kind of compound and learning more about it, and the people who are there and the control that they have and the privilege involved and what privileged people think that they can do. I do love books set in nature, so most of my stars go to that and the description and the atmosphere. And then I really like following a main character who's passionate about something. It doesn't have to be something that I care about at all, because do not care about fishing. This guy loves fishing, can't stop talking about fishing. That's his whole job, it's his whole life. So if you love fishing and you want to check out apocalyptic near future kind of settings, definitely recommend this for you. The plot itself didn't really grab my attention in the way that other post-apocalyptic kind of stories have, but I definitely took no issue with it. So a solid 3.5. I also forgot to tell you, I did watch the movie We Need to Do Something. I paid, I think, $7 for it on whatever service I found it on. What a waste of my money. That was not good. I have had these braids in for so long, but I still don't think they're dry. I wasn't planning on taking them out right now, but I just remembered I have to pick up Liam early from school to take him to an optometry appointment. So I can dry my hair with my new, Rob got me this for my birthday, and it's so, like, I didn't know this was magnetic. It came in this case, which is really beautiful. There are all of these different things you can put on. Anyway, I've been reading this all morning. I'm halfway through Set on You, and I think it's like okay, and I have a feeling we're gonna have another 3.75 romance and you're all gonna hate me for it. Now, this has nothing to do with Mara's pitch, but people told me before when they recommended this to me that it has like fat girl rep, but it's not about that. It's not like the story and her insecurities and all of the plot points are not about her fatness. It's just like she happens to be fat and has all of these things going on in her life, which I thought I could appreciate, because obviously insecurity is a perfectly normal and fine thing in real life and in a book. But I think that I find it challenging when I'm reading romance and the main character, like so much of the book and the conflicts and the drama revolve around insecurity. So I was looking forward to this going against that, but I do feel like a lot of the book is is about her body image. It is talking a ton about how people don't respect her because she's bigger and in this like athletic career, how she's so body positive and is fighting against all of these trolls online. And it is a good body image message, but it still is a lot about her body. I feel like the conflict of them being together is a good portion focused on the way that she thinks people see her and see them together and the other people that he has been with who are thinner. One sec. The dynamic is reminding me enough of The Wedding Crasher that I could see why someone would say, like, read this if you liked this. There's also a little bit of a wedding involved in here, and it's leading up to one. It's not super focused on the wedding, but there is one. And there's a lot of family dynamics that I think you could say like make sense paired with The Wedding Crasher, because there were certain family expectations, and in this one it's just that her family doesn't really understand working on the internet, having an Instagram career. But something interesting is her sister is a bookstagrammer, which is fun. And I looked up the author. I'm pretty sure the author would consider herself like a bookstagrammer. She's been posting really pretty pictures even far before she was published. And I think that her next book after this one was like a spin-off and is following that sister. She's talking about getting sent books from publishers and her expectations, and like they both have this Instagram situation going on. Then also, I think you could say The Wedding Crasher felt a little bit juvenile and like silly at times, and Set on You gives me those vibes because they're like stealing each other's phones at the gym and like hiding things from each other. But I can also see how throughout the rest of the book they're going to be more warm and really communicative with each other. Like the drama involved is going to be more personal than stuff between the two of them. So the plot is just them constantly coming into contact with each other at the gym and the dynamic that they have. I wouldn't say this one I would use the word gimmicky for, at least not at this point. And The Wedding Crasher was definitely like silly, over the top, and also more like conniving because they have this fake dating going on. All right, I'm gonna finish putting this together, go get Liam, and talk to you soon. Well, this one was not my favorite. I think I'm gonna land my rating around a 2.5. I just didn't like these characters. I didn't like them individually, and I didn't like them together. I don't think that they are right for each other. Crystal was hard to get on board with. She is very judgy. She clearly, you know, has an internet persona and doesn't always live up to that herself, but wants to put on a certain front and wants to empower other people, which is so great. And she acknowledged that she had her own things to work through and was grappling with things. Her insecurities she talked about, and that was all great. But then there were certain things about her personality she never acknowledged, like how judgy she was to everybody else. There was weird like mental health references. There was a lot of weird things she said about men at the gym, and it just didn't seem in line with the character that the author had built. And then, I don't know, I just didn't like the chemistry. Their first kiss really caught me off guard, and not in a good way, but I was down to just keep going. There was one steamy scene that was good, but it was weird because the location of it was weird. She got very intense very quickly with this man, but like was pretending that she didn't like him, yet was like going through his phone and like not listening to him when he was telling her things. She was constantly like, you're lying. And a lot of it just felt like a bummer to watch her go through. It's interesting to me that she named him Scott, because there is like a fellow well-known TikTok, Instagram kind of, she does fitness content. She is plus size and her husband is very fit. And they have gone viral multiple times about like, look at this fat woman and this fit guy. He can't love her. He wants her for her money. There must be something else going on. And that turns out to be the plot of this as well. And he even talks about it in the synopsis, though that's not something that happens until very late in the book. In real life, the woman's name is Alicia and her husband is Scott. And so it's just interesting. I wonder if it was inspired in some way, or maybe she didn't even realize that she had heard this story. Understand the recommendation, did expect it to be a lot more wild and wacky than it was. I haven't seen you in a couple days. I have been slowly making my way through Kaikeyi, and I had to take some time off to read The White House, and now I just finished the live show so I can get back into this, which I am loving. Like, loving. So for the first 30%, I even tabbed it. It was reminding me a lot of Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which is actually another one that Janani mentioned and gave another recommendation for that I was considering. We're following this young girl. She has a mother who's been banished, and her position in society is kind of messy. Her father wants certain things of her, and she's kind of like entering these different positions. At one point, she asked her dad to like run a competition so she could be in control of the family and the man that she ends up marrying. He didn't let her do that, which I was hoping like that was going to be the plot, but I'm even happier where the plot has gone, because at this point it's switched into being like her story as an adult, and now I definitely see where the Cersei vibe is coming from. There's this really interesting magic she's discovering she has, and the way it's explained I'm finding fascinating. It's like threads that she can create connections and bonds with people and kind of manipulate them into doing things. I don't want to give too much of the plot away at this point forward, but she has met some different individuals. She has become invaluable, irreplaceable to her husband outside of just being his partner. She's showing how much she's capable of. She has all of these brothers, and she has this one twin who helped her realize her full potential when she was younger. And now at this point, a couple of chapters later, once things shift into being her adult story, and here everything just seems so perfect. Everything has gone exactly as she has needed it to, and she's even saying things like, I felt peaceful, I haven't felt that in years. I had a family and they loved me. And it just feels like too much is good, and we're now at a turning point where everything is just gonna go to shit. Like someone's about to die, someone's about to betray her, there's gonna be a reveal, and I'm nervous. Like I am really enjoying this family and the dynamics and this character, and I'm nervous about what's about to happen to them. Naturally, with something that's a retelling or inspired by epic tales, there's going to be liberties taken. It is a source of inspiration, and it's going to take a different spin on things. And for that reason, it shouldn't be taken as like you feel like you have now more historical context to the origin story. Like these are just fictional, fun stories that stand on their own. Pairing these definitely makes a lot of sense. The women at the heart of them, the passion that they have, the family, different like dynamics going on, the magic. Each equally had a death scene that also really just wrecked me. I loved Kaikeyi as a character. I think all of the side characters were so strong in their characterization, so vivid. You knew exactly who they were. I loved seeing her interactions with each individual person, her general support of women, and the like group that she created. And I just loved following her deciding what to do with her influence throughout the book, what kind of impact she was going to have, both with her like magical ability to manipulate people, but also just what she's going to do with her influential power in her royalty position that she has. I could have used 50 more pages. I think the ending came a little too swiftly, and I would have liked to sit in the turmoil before it got solved. So the solution itself, not giving any spoilers, and the impact that it had felt even more impactful. But I'm absolutely giving it 5 stars. It was such an interesting read. I had a great time, and I love it just as much as Cersei. I have now started in on A God in the Shed, and I don't know if it's gonna be my brand of horror. Creature horror isn't always my favorite, but like lately there have been ones that worked for me. And I just don't know, because the beginning of the book introduces us to the horrific situation and what's responsible for it. And I just think that's a really interesting way to set up a book. So it was way back in the 1870s, and there are these kids who go into this like cave and discover this creature, and they play games with him, and then something bad happens. And then from there, we're jumping to, I don't even know what year this is gonna be. It feels like present day. And we're following these police officers, detectives, who have discovered a crime scene and a whole bunch of dead people. And so we as the reader know that this creature is the one responsible for it, I'm assuming, and is like controlling people probably to kill them to feed to him in his little cave. So I'm just questioning, like, what on earth are we going to talk about for 400 pages? Obviously not all horror has to have a mystery, but maybe I lean towards ones where we don't really know what's responsible, what entity there is, and for all I know, there is going to be more mysteries introduced and we don't know everything. I definitely like the writing enough to continue, but I don't know that I'm super intrigued by the plot. So I'll go ahead and check in with you once I actually am. Just realized it's Easter and I'm reading a horror book about God. So yikes. I put on my warm, cozy, festive Easter sweater and we're headed out. I don't know, it looks like it's gonna rain, but I think we're gonna throw the baseball around and stop at my parents because I guess they have an Easter present for Liam, even though I'm their kid. I don't know, I just feel like I should still get Easter candy at my big age. This is going good. Following a character named Venus as she's moving into a shed in her backyard. She's sick of her parents and she's running away to her own backyard. So I'll update you again at some point. I can't believe I did it. I finished it. I'm so tired. This video was supposed to go up today. I'm not sure how. I thought I was going to read 9 books in 9 days, but to get this up tomorrow, just one day late, I'm going to try to read both of these in one day tomorrow. Also early enough in the day to get the video up. So stay tuned for if I pull that off. A God in the Shed. I learned the author is Canadian and from Quebec, and the story is set there, which is fun. It's this small town with a history of death and dark magic, and I think the recommendation paired with The Good House totally makes sense because there's this large cast of characters and there's different generations. That's something that's always interesting. A lot of times that type of story will involve young children, and it's like scary young creepy children versus their adult parents and how they behave differently when they come into contact with these evil forces. But we had more like teen age characters, which is more enjoyable in my opinion to read, and seeing the difference between generations and how people handle things and just the relationship dynamics. I think The Good House, from what I remember, has a lot of plot outside of the scary stuff. So there's you know, work and relationships and sex and various things in here. This was mostly focused on the horror, but had a lot of emotional depth. Like you got to feel how you got to find out how every character was feeling all the time. It actually reminded me of a bunch of different horror books. It kind of reminded me of Josh Malerman, Pearl specifically, and Daphne, and the idea that your mind can be kind of manipulated by this force, and there's a bit of obsession involved and constant horrific things happening to characters who were like just recently introduced. But I also would really recommend this for people who loved The Spite House, which I just recently finished, and The Hollow Kind, because these also have this kind of ancestral, generational magic and horror. It did get a little bit culty, which I don't always love, and I'm giving it the same rating that I'm giving a bunch of the things that I'm referencing, which is a 3. So it didn't quite live up to Tananarive Due for me. She's just something really special, but I would find myself recommending this, I feel like, more often than The Good House, because this does feel slower and more dense, and it goes off on lots of different side stories. I'm just more specific about who I recommend this to. I think this is more broadly enjoyable if you're just looking for a fast-paced horror, even though it is just as long. What I think is impressive is when an author can pull off introducing you to so many characters but making them all distinct, which is something I also recently talked about with The Spite House. We had like a doctor character, a detective character, we had one teenager who was the main focus, but there were also side characters, and they all felt really fleshed out. As the reader, there were some mysteries involved, but it was more so just waiting for the characters to figure everything out, and then also following their decisions once they discover what's actually happening. I think it was a decent one. My star rating is only like 1.5 stars away, so it's not drastically different. And let's see how I fare tomorrow. So I woke up bright and early to start the soulmate equation, and now it's like noon. I just dropped Liam off at the pool to hang out with some friends, and I have made great progress. I'm 2/3 of the way through. I think sometimes when I look at romance covers, I've had this proven against what I'm thinking, but like sometimes when it's people on the cover, I think it's going to be more about their relationship, and it's going to be softer and lighter. And then when it's just one person on the cover or it's a graphic, I think it's going to be more serious. But this one is lighter than I expected. I just feel like you can predict what the both conflict is going to be and the plot twist, if there's going to be a plot twist. Having read the one, there's a certain direction this whole idea of DNA matching can go, and I have a feeling it's going to have the same conclusion. The setup of the characters in the relationship is interesting because they're both a little bit cold and analytical, but they're warming to the idea of their DNA being the reason that they should be together. And obviously he is the like creator of the entire thing, so this is the first time he's been matched with somebody, and he has more invested in it actually being a success. So it's kind of like, just by reading the synopsis, I in this position would be thinking, okay, is this person actually interested in me, or did they just want to prove that the DNA matching works and they're faking being interested in me? It kind of feels like a fake dating scenario, like it has the tone of that, even though it's not technically what it is. She's being incentivized to date him in order to prove that the DNA matching is great, because it's a newer program and the people who've matched before, they've only gotten up to like 70%. These two match and they're at the 98%. So there's a lot on the line if their matching actually works out or not. But I think they're both really into each other a little too quickly. And I think from her perspective, that's why I could especially see, like, maybe in a little bit, she's going to think, well, maybe he's not actually interested in me because he's coming on pretty strong, but so is she at this point. And I mean, obviously, we're meant to believe that's because they are the perfect match for each other. And if that's true or not, even if it's a placebo, like, I'm sure that's what is making them get together so quickly, but it's just happening a little too fast for me. But it's relatively light and fun at this point, so I'm having a good time. This is the most I've enjoyed a romance this week at this point in the book, so that's good. Now, I'm not normally an epilogue girl. I'm rarely looking for one. Sometimes I don't even read it if it's there. So the fact that I enjoyed the one that was in here and the length of it, I think that has to indicate like my enjoyment of this. Recommending across genres is tough because, like, how do you know that it's the soulmate and the science and the genes of this that was so enjoyable? Because I think what I love about the one is that there is so many different perspectives. There's a bunch of different relationships to follow. Obviously, the thriller aspect of this means that there's twists and turns and reveals frequently. And this didn't have that, but I did equally enjoy the science explanation. So since we're focused on this guy and his job, there is some workplace stuff. And then they have this new budding relationship to follow. She also has family tension going on. And that definitely felt intense, but it wasn't too hard for me to get back into the romantic scenes. If you don't know me and my history with romance, I find when things get really heavy unexpectedly, it just pulls me out of the entire soft feelings that I'm having towards the relationship. But I think everything was balanced pretty well in here. It was simplistic, which isn't something that you should consider a flaw in the genre. I'm gonna give it a 4. It wasn't my perfect romance, but I had a good time throughout it. I like these characters together. It all just happened too fast, and I'm more of a slow burn girl. My favorite character in here is Jessica's best friend, Fizzy. And I was so sad to find out that Christina Lauren, they don't really do companion novels the way that a lot of other romance authors do that I enjoy, where you get to read one relationship and then there's a spin-off. But then I just went to the Goodreads and there is a book following Fizzy coming out just next month. And I feel like she is a less likable main character, and I think she will be fun to follow. But she's gonna be on like this reality dating show because she's a romance author. She writes a romance book about them in here, which is just very cute. So I think that's gonna be my next Christina Lauren, which is fun. and feel free to recommend me which ones I should go back to and definitely check out. And now it's time for the last read. So I'll update you at maybe 50 or 100 pages in, just to touch base on my initial thoughts. So I'm actually 200 pages in, and not because I can't stop reading and I couldn't update you. I think I wanted to get out of the introductions of all the characters and all of their internal thoughts and into like the battle itself before I could form an opinion, because I feel like firstly this should have been an adult novel. I just don't think that it's going to be as deadly as I want. They no doubt have evil thoughts. They're all definitely a bunch of villainous characters with villainous intention, but now that I'm in the danger of it all, I just don't think it's going to go in that direction. I think I care as much about this as I would if I were reading The Hunger Games for the first time at this age. So it's not the book's fault, it's just where I'm at with my reading. It's a shame that I don't remember Vicious. Has it been too long, or what is it that I don't really remember a lot about it besides the fact that I gave it a 4? So I can't really tell you if the characters are reminding me of anybody or the vibes are. I do think the audiobook, because that's I'm listening to it in tandem. I'm mostly doing the audiobook at this point. They're doing a great job of narrating. I think I'm confused why we're only following 4 characters when there are 7 families, though that is the right choice, I think, because they are well established, and maybe it's because there's different narrators, but they're all very distinct. We got their backstories for a long time, which I do like. The setup is good, the atmosphere is good. Now that we're in the magic, they're basically fighting over their family's control over the magic. So it's like someone in the family is being selected, so you're waiting to see if you're going to be your family's pick. So it's like there can be some sibling rivalry involved with that. It's like, whose turn is it? Does my family expect me to die? Am I going to get like sponsors and supporters? And then of course all of the competitors have opinions of each other whilst in the game. I feel like I am honestly less motivated to get through it knowing that it's a duology and there's a whole nother book, because I feel like most books that follow this type of storyline where there is a competition and there is going to be a winner, they pretty much end in the same way. This could not be true for this one for sure, and maybe it's subverting things, but I feel like the whole plot and point of it is that this is the final tournament. Like, this is, the whole thing is going to end. Society can't keep going in this direction, so eventually it has to stop. And knowing there's another book, as someone who's a fan of standalones, I know that we're probably not going to get all the answers. It's just going to be the kickoff of the takedown of the tournament structure. That's just what I'm assuming. I could be totally wrong. Hopefully some epic stuff happens in this next 170 pages. We've got a lot of time to go. So clearly I didn't succeed at my plan to finish these both last night and get the video up. That was ambitious, but I did finish it today. I needed to go back in the audiobook and read a little bit again because clearly I wasn't paying close enough attention. I figured out the game. All the dynamics between the characters were interesting to follow and learn, and all of the alliances and the behind the scenes stuff going on. It was interesting. And I went back and looked at my review of Vicious, and this just wasn't a fair book for me to read and take the recommendation for, because I think it's a great recommendation. It totally checks out. But I specifically said in my video that like, I liked learning about the moral grayness of it all, but once we got into the action sequences, it lost me. So like, I clearly didn't want an action book. I will always consider myself someone who enjoys following villainous characters, but those types of books never end up at the top of my TBR, so it was fun to end up reading one. I don't know what my rating is gonna be. A 3. Let's call it a 3. I won't be continuing in the series, and a lot of things went the exact direction I was expecting in that vein, but there were some surprising plot elements, I guess. And at the end of the day, something that's fun is I had the exact same results this time as the first time I did the video. There is 1 5-star, the rest are 4s and 3s, with a couple that I just didn't love and would put slightly under a 3. So I remain the same kind of reader. Booktubers remain giving solid recommendations. The question is, can we trust booktuber recommendations? I think I'm gonna have to say yes, and the same thing I said before, which is I think these videos are so valuable because it's so easy to just Google like books that have this same trope and you can find a list of recommendations, but not until you've actually read the both of the books that you're mentioning can you give an accurate vibe check to them and if they're for the same audience. Because two books that have the same plot doesn't mean that the same people are going to enjoy both of those things. I'm really happy to have gotten through one book that was already on my TBR. I'm happy to have been introduced to these authors who have been recommended to me before. Happy to have checked out some horror that I probably wouldn't have without this video concept. Some books I barely knew anything about or had never heard of, like that's always fun, even though they were both just okay. And then my romance journey continues, which naturally is going to include some flops, whether I picked them myself or somebody else selected them for me. Thank you to all the booktubers who made this video possible by posting these recommendation videos. Thank you for being here and watching. Maybe I'll do this again in 3 years. Bye!